The other thing that we're doing is we're having some great speakers come and talk to the company. And I'm going to introduce you guys to Sequoia Blodgett, right over here. Sequoia, just a quick bio, she spent the bulk of her professional career as a producer and director focused on music videos, commercials, and branded content. And she worked with top artists and international brands. Now, interestingly, within the last few years, she moved to Silicon Valley and dove headfirst into the tech industry. She founded a venture-backed startup called 7am, and she's since moved on from that first company and is currently tech editor for Black Enterprise. Recently, she launched Commas, which is a members-only club that connects like-minded individuals to exclusive online and offline experiences. So please give Sequoia a warm Reddit welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I thought we should start by talking about your work and your transition from the entertainment industry into tech. You came from LA to Silicon Valley, and the other interesting thing is you're coming in to the region at a time when many people are actually saying it's time to leave, which I think is interesting. So what brought you to Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so my industry was being massively disrupted by technology because as a music video director, we were the byproduct of what was happening with all of the streaming services. So as record labels were being hit, they couldn't figure out how to monetize. And essentially what happened was our budgets dropped dramatically. So it was like we went from like $500,000 budgets to like 50,000. And it was like, wait, I need to eat. So I really just tried to figure out what was the next move. And I ended up moving out here and kind of mentoring a bunch of younger girls who were going through this like entrepreneurship boot camp. And all of their parents worked for like YouTube and like Facebook and all these crazy companies. And what happened was I found out about venture capital in a way that I hadn't before. I'm from the Bay and didn't know that people were fundraising to the magnitude that they were and all of these other like secret society type of situations. So I was like, wait, let me move out and explore that. So I got wind of this company, Draper University, that was created by this venture capitalist, Tim Draper, and did not know what I was getting myself into, but pretty much was like, all right, let me go out there and see.
Well, that's really cool. So are you a Netflix subscriber, can I ask?
I canceled it last night. Randomly, it happened.
Okay, just wondering if there was hard feelings there. But it sounds like it was a great move. And I'd love to hear, because you mentioned Draper. You were able to get funding and actually launch a startup, but also you did it really, really quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggle with that. So what was your approach? How did you break in and get that done so fast?
Yeah, so I used a lot of my relationships coming into Draper before. So what happened was I was crowdfunding, just going into it just to see, just kind of validating the product, right? And I reached out to a friend of mine, and before music videos, like in the very, very beginning of my career, I was working in radio. And it just so happened that he was the top producer for the #1 FM or AM station in the Los Angeles market. So he was like, yeah, I could create, a little funding to your crowdfunding campaign, or I could just put you on the radio and you can talk about it. So he was like, if I'm gonna do that though, you have to bring somebody from Draper. Not knowing that somebody could potentially be Tim Draper. I was not even checking for Tim like that. Like I was like, all right, do you guys have an admin that I could bring on? And so I reached out and they were like, well, his daughter, Jessie Draper, lives in LA, so maybe she could do it. We went back and forth for a while. They were like, she is at Fashion Week. She is not checking for this radio thing right now. And so essentially when I emailed them back, they were like, well, maybe Tim can do it. And I was like, what, Tim? Like his schedule will permit that? So yeah, he flew out to LA. I met him for the first time and we did a radio segment together. And that's essentially how our relationship started with Draper U.
That's really cool. So Draper U is like how you broke in and got...
Absolutely, yeah.
And you had Tim on your show.
Literally.
That's a smooth move. Well, now that you've been here for a while, I want to hear about what you learned. We'll start. I'm trying to get something spicy out of you. So, what's the biggest misconception that people have about Silicon Valley?
The biggest misconception that I would say that people have about Silicon Valley is that everybody is not for your company. So I think a lot of people come out here with this ideal to raise funds, and they get super disappointed when they go to all of these different VCs and they're like, they said no, and because of this, or the barrier to entry was too high or too low, or this, like all of these different excuses. And I think that one, you do not have to have venture to run a successful company. That's one of the biggest misconceptions, I would say. And then two, you should be talking to people who are in alignment with your brand, right? So Tim is like this zany entrepreneur investor who, like, his investments are like Tesla and Skype and Baidu and like all these massive, investments. So when he invested in 7am, it was purely based off of relationship. Like, it wasn't like, I was not Elon Musk walking into the office, right? So I think that was a very unique situation. And I think that a lot of the times people will ask, like I have friends, they'll be like, oh, introduce me to Tim. He'll take an intro anytime, right? I'll make that intro, and then he'll just be like, yeah, no, this isn't for me, like very quickly, like within minutes, right? And so they get super disappointed. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a viable company or idea, or, it just means he's not the right investor for you. So I think that's one of the misconceptions I would say.
It's extremely good advice. And let's push it a little bit further. What is one thing, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you fix about Silicon Valley?
What would I fix? That was a big sigh, right? Yeah. What would I fix about Silicon Valley? I don't want to go into the whole diversity topic because I think it's been beat to death. But I think, so I just threw an event with my new company, Commas, and it literally was the most diverse room I've ever seen in the entire time I've been here. I mean, in terms of age, gender, race, everything, right? So if we could have companies that look similar to that, I think that we would be in a winning position. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm definitely a fan of that. Let's.
This room looks like that, though. Just put it out there.
Let's see. Let's talk a little bit more about your unique perspective. So, given your background in both entertainment and tech, you have a very unique perspective. How does that help? Hurt? Like, how do you take advantage of it?
I think it helps me in terms of just visuals, right? So anything I put out, I make sure is like very visually strong. I feel like a lot of Silicon Valley is engineer based in terms of just like everything's very analytical. It looks very like, And so for me, design is super important. So when I go about approaching companies, like, I can create a killer pitch deck. I can create like website design, app design, like everything for me visually has to be on point. And I think that's what gets me in the room a lot of the times. People are like, man, this girl, like, this looks great, right? So I have this ability to kind of create a company that looks way bigger than it actually is. And I think that is a key selling point. It's just being very mindful in terms of like how you present yourself on a personal brand standpoint and even on a business standpoint. Like, what does that look like visually for you?
Very cool. Let's talk a little bit about trends. What do you think the most interesting tech or entertainment trend is going to be for this year?
Cryptocurrency, you guys. Okay, listen. I threw caution to the wind and put a ton of money into Bitcoin, right?
When did you do it?
When did I? Okay. So let me back up, right? So of course, being through Draper, Tim has 15 million, and now it's worth 500 million or something crazy in Bitcoin, right? So in 2015, he was like, you guys need to invest in Bitcoin. And he was like literally giving away Bitcoin. Like, we had a Bitcoin ATM like literally in the building. And so I was like, what is this Bitcoin? Like I don't get it. I'm not doing it. And so I'm watching as like the spike just happens and it happens. And I'm like, okay, wait, now it's getting interesting. So I put my money in about a year ago. So it didn't hit the climax like I would have loved it to in 2015. but I made a little bit of money. But I will say this, I did get in early on altcoins. So my altcoins are looking good, y'all.
Wait, what's your favorite altcoin on here?
So people have a kind of a disdainment for this coin, but Ripple hit really hard. And I get it, like it's the cryptocurrency that's like not like decentralized currency, and it's like, no, it's for the banks and like all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it made me money, I'm good. So yeah.
I wish I had gotten it on Ripple. I missed this entire wave.
It was like a feeling, like everybody was like talking about it in like this hush hush type of way, and I'm like, I can't get on Binance. Like I'm like up in the middle of the night taking crazy pictures, sending them to this offshore company, and I'm like, here's my license and here's my number and all these other things crazy. But yeah, I got it. So that's
cool. Bitcoin is where it's at.
Yeah, crypto, not just Bitcoin.
Right. So I was kind of LinkedIn stalking you. And I saw, you were in Malaysia over, I guess it was like a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you could tell the audience about what you were doing there, what made you want to go?
Yeah, so recently I've gotten really interested in investing in early stage companies as an angel investor. And so I actually made my first investment probably a couple of months ago in this company called True Gold. And this is for the ladies real quick, but like our heels hurt like a right? And so I was like, some company has disrupted this space, I'm sure of it, where they can make customized heels. So I'm literally Googling, and this company True Gold comes up, and you take a picture of your foot, and then it sends it away, and it customizes your shoe and your heel to fit it to the T. And so I was like, I want in. And not only do I want the shoe, but I want in as an investor. So I went, and that was my first angel investment. So I was invited by this company who does creative startups, they do accelerators around the world. And they were like, yeah, do you want to come to Kuala Lumpur and kind of check out what's going on? I was like, absolutely, because I know they're going to be super early stage. And then you can start the relationships. And then in addition to that, they're going to be international. So that means they have room to grow and scale and all that great stuff.
Was there a different kind of vibe in the tech scene there versus here? Like, how would you characterize it?
It's not as aggressive. Here it's like, get out there, raise your capital, like exit next month. Like, no, it's like it's a slower growth strategy. It's very similar companies. They just have a massive market that hasn't been fulfilled yet. And they have the ability to scale beyond and then globally going the other direction, right? So I looked at that as an opportunity to definitely see what they had going on.
I mean, let's dig into it. Like, why is it so important to you? I mean, that's a long trip.
I know.
Why do you feel so passionate about it?
So I've been in different locations. So that was one, but I've also looked at locations in the States, accelerators in the States, and other, opportunities. So I think for me, that specific opportunity presented itself, and I was like, hey, let me go check it out and see if there's things that or companies that I want to invest in. And there were definitely some companies that were viable companies, but just really, really early.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now I want to talk about some of your current projects. I want to talk about Commas. A lot of folks here haven't heard about Commas. What you can tell us about it and what it is and why you got into it.
Commas started as this insane quota from Black Enterprise. They were like, I need 10 articles a week. And I'm like, why? What? No one's reading 10 articles a week. Like, that doesn't make sense. And so I was like, well, maybe if I make it creative video content. And so I went and created this story and lit it, and it was like blue and purple and all these cool colors, and it was super fly, and I was like, Black Enterprise ain't getting this. So I kept it, and I put it out, and I pushed it out to my audience, and they were like, when's the next one? Where do we sign up? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. So literally, I'm at home, trying to figure out how to make this company make sense, because it was not a company at the time. Literally, it was just an episode, right? So I started to think it through, and I, of course, called Black Enterprise and was like, listen, this is coming out. This has nothing to do with you guys. Let's be clear. And they were totally okay with that, which was, I was super excited about. So it started as this little bitty seed, out of a pressure, and then it just birthed into this bigger situation. So now we just had an event last week, no, 3 weeks ago. Gary Vaynerchuk was our keynote, so he partnered on it, came out to the Bay. So it was a good situation, and it's just growing like really fast.
Gotcha. Did Gary Vee tell you to crush it?
Absolutely. Jab, 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 right hook.
That guy does not sleep. Really cool. Like, what was your favorite guest so far? Like, speaking of that.
So I would definitely say my favorite guest. So we had Spectacular, who is a part of the group Pretty Ricky, and that group was hot, like I would say in the early 2000s. But he went away and started his own company, AdWazar, which is a social media marketing agency. And he literally took all of these celebrities' accounts who didn't know how to monetize their accounts. And so he was sitting and he was talking to like a couple of celebs, and then he was like, so you guys have all of these millions of followers, but like, what are you doing with them? And they were like, he's like, are you monetizing them? And they were like, monetize? He was like, all right, cool. So went home and basically birthed this company, AdWazar, out of a need for these celebs not knowing how to pretty much make money, right? And so we pulled him in and just kind of got an idea of how he was helping these celebs monetize, but also everyday people. Like, how do you grow your social media accounts so that you can actually sell against it? So that was a super interesting conversation, because I think a lot of people look at celebs for what they do. So it's like, oh, you play basketball, like you sing, or whatever it is that they do, like you're an actress or actor or whatever. But a lot of celebs are getting into tech now, and then they don't have, like, there's like this kind of questionable viability. It's like, are you in tech just because you're trying to make money, and do you know what you're doing? Like I hear this all the time, right? But a lot of them absolutely know what they're doing, and have created really viable companies from it. And so for me, I think those stories are important to share.
Well, I've got to ask then, who do you want your next, you can pick anyone on the planet, who's your next guest on Comma's going to be?
That's so funny. Okay, so I always have to think about the audience, right? Because of course I could be like, well, Oprah. But like, does the audience want Oprah right now? Like, is the audience ready for Oprah? You know what I mean? So
It's always wants Oprah.
yeah, but are they ready for Oprah?
Sequoia, there's a new car under your chair.
I feel it. So I have to think about that, right? So where are we in our growth cycle? Is Oprah too early for us, right? Like, is bringing Oprah, should we wait until we like get massive and be like, we got Oprah, right? So for me, it's about thinking about who the audience wants and what makes sense for the audience. So the bulk of our audience is entrepreneurs. Some of them are execs from other tech companies. So I kind of like poll them and figure out where they are and what they want to know. So that's why we brought Spec in, is because people want to know how to monetize their social media accounts. They want to know how to grow their personal brands. They want to know how to, do all these things. So I pair it based off of our audience.
Right, custom tailored.
Yeah.
Now, I want to switch gears a little bit. So Reddit, about a month ago, we actually started kind of a mentorship program here.
Yeah.
Reddit's first mentorship program. Is mentoring valuable to you?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people kind of look and seek out a mentor, but I think we're all each other's mentors, right? So we kind of look at who's been successful, especially I do, right? Who's successful in my space, and then how can I mimic what they're doing? Like, how do I adjust accordingly so it's not like ripping off what they're doing? But like, how do I mimic that so that I can garner that same amount of success? And that's something that, they're a mentor by default. Like, you didn't have to sign up for the mentorship, but like, I made you my mentor, right? So I think a lot of the times we focus in on somebody and we're like, that person needs to be my mentor, and you're calling them every day, you put all this energy into them, when it's like, they actually are your mentor, right? You just pull from the resources and then utilize that.
Ooh, I'm gonna thank you for mentoring me.
Absolutely, anytime.
What's the best advice though you've ever taken or absorbed from a mentor?
So I would say definitely Tim Draper, and that is just to try it and get out there. Like, it doesn't matter. A lot of people think, so I have this very morbid thought process, right? And so everything that ends in my thought process is, but you're just gonna die. And so, like, if you think about life like that, like, you just do stuff because it's like, but what's the worst that can happen, right? Like, at the end, we're all gonna end up in the same place. So get out there, do it, and try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I feel like a lot of the times we get in our own way, and then our fears start to circulate, and we're like, but what if? And we can what if ourselves to death, right? And I feel like if we just try it 9 times out of 10, it's gonna work. And if it doesn't work, you learn from it. You don't fail. To me, there's no such thing as failing, right? It just didn't work. So what did you learn from it? And then how do you apply that to the next thing that you do?
Oh my God, truth. You got the cameras recording, right? Yeah, let's get some applause for that one. It's written. Okay, so final question, and then we're going to open it up for audience Q&A. Final and most important question of any Reddit interview is, what is your favorite subreddit?
So I've been following Black Twitter. And okay, so right now everybody's talking about Black Panther, and I'm like, no. Because I'm speaking on a panel for them tonight at their screening, and I'm like, let's just wait until tomorrow, and then I can go back on and we can all talk about it. But I cannot talk about it right now because I don't want the spoilers. So I haven't been on it today.
Right, well, Black people Twitter is my favorite subreddit. Well, now we're going to open up for Q&A. Audience, let's see, how should we handle this? Just raise your hand and call out your questions, okay? Go ahead.
I'm someone who has like hesitations around exclusivity and like communities that are like exclusive because I feel like they like prevent other people from joining and like can center around like specific commonalities such as race or things like that. How is your organization like? Is that something that you think about and like can you describe like what the community is like kind of built around?
Yeah, so specifically to commas, is that your question? Yeah. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. I work at Black Enterprise, it's super exclusive to Black people. So when I launched commas, I was like, I don't want this to be like, this is a Black thing, right? Like, it's fly, like it's culturally relevant, like our event was basically Ted if Ted was like super swagged out, right? So we made it super fly, right? But I didn't say this is only for Black people or this is only for people who are entrepreneurs. It's for people who actually are excited about the content and really want to absorb the content. So that's why I would say it was probably the most diverse room I've ever seen in terms of Silicon Valley because we had every single person, like no joke, like adults, like a man brought his child, and I was like, oh, that's different. So like, because you don't see that. So for me, I think it's whoever it speaks to, then they kind of just join in and it is what it is. But I do understand the exclusive niche because then you have like a marketing funnel, you can bake it in and it's like easier to sell. But for me, I just felt like with this particular situation, I didn't want to go that route. My biggest motivation, I love helping people. I don't know, that sounds super cheesy, like, I just want to help. But I feel like you get to see immediate results, right? And I feel particularly fulfilled when I know that I'm out and I'm like giving back and I'm helping people to move along. I think with commas, one of the biggest things is like, how do you connect to like-minded individuals who maybe need that extra boost or need that motivation? And that's why we're like super like business oriented. So 7 a.m., just to go back a little bit, 7 a.m. was a personal development education platform, right? That was guided around informed pop culture, but we talked about mindfulness to depression to like all of these things that like, I feel like school should have taught you. Like, why am I learning trigonometry and I've never used it again? So we rooted that in terms of education. And with that, I feel like a lot of that has transitioned over to commas. So even though we talk about business, even though the conversations were like venture capital and like, how do you fundraise and what are these founders doing and how are these execs gotten to their positions, it's always rooted in some. So Live Your Legacy was our last event. So it was about like, what legacy do you want to leave when you leave this planet? So yeah, there's always a full circle around that.
Oh, in the back.
You said said there's no failure, it's just things not working out. What was like the most valuable lesson you learned? Like what was an example of something not working out for you? And what was the lesson you learned?
7 a.m. So it did not work because I did not know what I was doing. So I got this huge investment from Tim, and he's like, yeah, go. Like, Tim's a billionaire, so his money is like long. He doesn't care. So I basically was like, oh my God, I have a Delaware C Corp. What do I do? So all of a sudden I inherited this company like that was like a real corporation. It wasn't like some like mom and pop shop. And I was like, I don't know how to be a CEO. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how, and I'm like trying to raise money still. I'm like, this is stupid. So the reason why I actually went to go work at Black Enterprise is because they've been around for 47 years. They were the only all Black owned publication up until last month when Rich Dennis bought back Essence, right? But they've never raised venture capital. So more importantly than them being this Black-owned organization is like, how did you sustain for 47 years and like never raise a cent of VC? And so that really was my intention when I went to go work for them, is to learn from them. Like, how do you guys generate revenue? And now I know, like I am in there, I know sponsorships, like I know like how to sell against ads and like all of these things. And I think with Commas, we have, at the root of everything, it's a media company, right? Essentially, we will, connect and network and all these other things, but like media first. And so knowing that, I was like, all right, that's something that I absolutely had to learn by working at a corporation versus kind of just pounding my head against the wall and asking Tim to give me more money because I tried. And he was like, girl, goodbye. like get out there and build a company, please. So yeah, that was my learning failure.
All right, what's up? All right, looks like we've tapped out our audience for the. Oh, one more.
What advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your career?
That is a great question. Okay, so when I was working in music videos, I literally was one of 6 working female directors, period, like in the entire industry. And I was pounding my head against the wall all the time because it was always like, oh, did you see Vashti? Like, she just got this video. Or like, it was always a comparison to the other female directors. And for me, it was like, listen, there are a bazillion male directors out there. Like, why is there like, oh, so Melina just booked XYZ video? And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I think it's not stressing so much about like other people's opinions and just doing it. And if it works, here's the thing, if it works, the people who are attracted to you will come to you and everybody else will fall by the wayside. And that is totally fine. Like you should not be boiling the ocean. Talking to Sequoia, like you shouldn't be trying to please everybody because it's just not humanly possible, right? You get 1% of the world, you're doing it perfectly fine. So I think for me, it's just understanding like you are not out here to please every single person. You are here to make sure that you put out your message and whoever is attracted to that message will be attracted to you. And that's it.
Mic drop.
As Steve would say.
Steve puts it as you do you. Is that,
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank Sequoia. I was inspired by this. I really enjoyed the conversation. Please give Sequoia a round of applause.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
And